Lack of evidence. Just, I mean, simply that's what it was, just lack of evidence. You had a problem in that the true bill named two people, John and Patsy Ramsey. Any defense attorney would move to sever that and have separate trials had there been an indictment, and then I don't know who you'd point the finger at. There certainly was no evidence against one that would have been, well, it was stronger against Patsy Ramsey, but you got separate trials. I think that's a terrible problem.
Your office over the years was not known for, even going forward, with a lot of felony trials, period.
Yeah.
And in particular, you were not known for doing so when the evidence was, for lack of a better word, shaky. Talk a little bit about what your philosophy was in that regard.
Well, first of all, you're right. We didn't have a lot of felony trials. Probably less than any other jurisdiction our size in Colorado. The state of the evidence in that case was just inadequate to file a charge, in my opinion. And that obviously was Hunter's opinion too. Whether it's against one or two people, you just didn't have the evidence. You didn't have good evidence in that case. And that is not that unusual in a homicide case. I think that the solve rate for homicides in Boulder County is something around 50 or 60% at best. I know that the solve rate for general felonies is 1 out of 5, so you just didn't have it. So that's why it's not that unusual to not have it.
There are people who, when they hear this, will say, that's Alex Hunter being timid. There are some who will say that it was perhaps even a courageous decision. Where do you come down on evaluating the decision that you made?
I thought it was a courageous decision because there was certainly a lot of public pressure to file charges, and apparently against the Ramseys. It just was simply a lack of evidence. And the fact that we had less felony trials really has nothing to do with the evidence part of the whole thing, because we got some good plea bargains out of a lot of cases by not filing, or by filing and then ending up plea bargaining the case. There just simply was a lack of evidence in that case.
When Alex made the decision that he made, was there unanimity inside the office among prosecutors in support of his decision, or was there some dissension?
Well, first of all, there were only probably 4 or 5, maybe 6 prosecutors involved in the investigation and eventual decision to file or not file. So it isn't the whole office. Among those, there was not unanimity in coming to a conclusion of not filing. There were a couple of the, say, we had 1, 2, 3, and there were 3 others, 6, 7, probably 8 people involved, and of the 8, there were at least a couple that did not agree with the decision not to file charges.
And to put it another way, there were perhaps a couple prosecutors who believed, file, full speed ahead, let's try this.
That's correct.
Put it in your words.
Well, my words would be that there were 2, at least that I know of, that felt that charges should have been filed. And you just take your chances. I don't agree with that.
Talk a little bit about the atmosphere in the office, or the dynamics in the office in the latter part of this case, and particularly through the grand jury process, whereby not everybody, and including you, not everybody knew what was actually happening on a day-to-day basis.
Yeah, that's a pretty easy one, because we had a very open office. prior to that case coming in. And almost from the inception of that case, it really closed down. I mean, there were a lot of closed doors where there hadn't been closed doors before, a lot of whispering, a lot of secrets among the people who were involved in the investigation of that, along with the Boulder Police Department.
Do you see the charge that they came up with, child abuse resulting in death, that weighing that against the facts of the cases you know them, do you see that charge as potentially a compromise charge, that perhaps, well, we don't know what he did, we don't know what she did, we can't figure out who put the ligature around her neck, we'll settle on this?
No, I don't see that at all. I believe that there was, first of all, a lack of evidence. But from the theories that I heard and discussed in the office, the chances of it being more of an accidental type of thing, and possibly with child abuse reaching kind of endings on it, I do not think it was a deliberate act at all.
It sounds like you believe that there was some merit to what the Ramseys themselves have said all along, that they focused on us to the great exclusion of a lot of other things that should have been run down.
Well, I think the Ramseys have said that. That is not where I draw my conclusion. I draw my conclusion by a chance, an absolute chance meeting that I had with a young man who was a college student that lived on the same block as the Ramseys, and I asked him if he was swabbed for DNA. He said he was never talked to. He was never talked to. He lives on the block with the Ramseys. He was a college student. I mean, all of the elements of potential breaking, and he was never talked to, much less swabbed. So that's where I really draw a lot of my conclusion.
Yeah, and I didn't mean to suggest you were drawing your conclusion from their comments. I'm just saying that you separately seem to have arrived at an opinion similar to theirs, that there was too much focus on them too soon to the exclusion of... That's
exactly right. And I think that a proper investigation might have come to the same conclusion, which is no conclusion, but pointing inside the family. But I will tell you this, if I were on a jury, I would not convict either of them, but particularly, I mean, the focus was on Patsy Ramsey. I would not convict her if I were on a jury, because of DNA that was found in John Bonet's panties, which is male, keep in mind male, that kind of excludes females, mixed with John Bonet's DNA, and it's just not, I wouldn't convict her.
And that's despite the contentions by some, well, that male DNA, there's innocent explanations for as to how it could have ended up.
Yes, there was a lot of speculation on how that male DNA coincidentally got mixed with her DNA. I don't buy any of that.